Welcome to the Rain or Shine podcast, where we talk about all things PRF. My name is Bronson. I'm the Ag Risk Consultant with Red Summit Advisors, and today I want to talk to you about building a PRF policy that fits with your risk tolerance. And that's something that we try and do here as best we can. And so what we're going to talk a little bit about is how we do that, because if you've been researching PRF at all for any length of time, probably heard that most of the premiums are dictated by the USDA. So there's only so much you can do to manipulate those things. But what we can do is manipulate coverage a little bit in ways that identify grids and intervals, which if you want to learn more about grids and intervals, we have another video that dives into that. But how we use grids and intervals to allocate your coverage in a way that is either a higher risk, which usually leads to higher indemnities, or maybe a more conservative policy that really minimizes your premium as much as possible. So what we do here at Red Summit is we will analyze your landscape, your acreage, your leases, and for a 15 to 20 year time period of historic data. And it's important that we use those little bit longer time frames because it allows us to see greater evidence of trends in your precipitation. And then your agent can use the software to help determine where to place coverage in, like I said, those grids or intervals. Grids, it's going to depend on the valuation of that grid and how the rainfall falls in that grid. And then the intervals, it's going to depend on what periods throughout the year are better to place coverage. And the way we can do that is we can create a higher net option, which basically what that does is it finds the opportunity across your operation that has the highest likelihood of receiving the most net indemnity, right? So you may have one policy structure that on average nets you $3 an acre, and you may have another policy structure that enables you to have net $3.56. And if you want to err on the side of risk, then we usually go with that, because in most cases, if you have a higher net indemnity, it's also more likely that you're going to pay premium because, as always, higher risk, higher reward. The way we work on a more conservative policy is to find some coverage that maybe isn't quite as volatile, may not have quite as high of a net, but tends to be less likely that you're going to pay a premium. So if you look at this graphic here, we have two lines. The first is the tan line, which is more of a high net policy structure, and we have the green line, which is more of a conservative policy structure. And I want you to know these aren't doctored numbers. These are numbers from a ranch that is a real ranch that we have as a client. The high net option, that there's higher peaks and higher valleys, and that it's a little hard to tell, but the high net version goes below zero, or meaning that you would owe premium about 4 or 5 times through the space of 20 years. Well, when you look at the green line, the more conservative option, you can see lower peaks and lower valleys, and it only dips below zero 2 times, 2 years out of 20. And so this is a really good illustration of how much coverage level we put in which grid and which interval. And the important thing to note is that we can really do this in a way that meets your risk tolerance, right? If you're more risky, great, we can go for it if you like the premium. And if you want to try and keep that premium lower, we can do more conservative. And we can change it. In year 1, we can be more conservative. And in year 2 or 3, when you're feeling more comfortable, we can change to a higher risk option. Another thing that's important to talk about when we talk about how we structure your policy in a way that's risky, more risk or less risky, is through how we allocate coverage. So here's another graphic we have that shows if we use the software to identify areas where it's more likely that you're going to have precipitation lower than average, then we can better design a policy based off of your risk goals. The bottom option is when you just allocate coverage spread evenly over the year, and you can see that we miss some opportunities to receive higher indemnities by not placing stronger amounts of coverage, more amounts of coverage in those intervals. So that's another really good example of how we use our software to allocate coverage. Just the biggest point we want to make with this this podcast, is that we really can help you meet your risk tolerance and get you PRF in a way that's going to be sustainable for your operation, where if you do have to pay part of your premium, it's not that big a deal. So give us a call. Here at Red Summit Advisors, we have lots of agents that can help you with our software. Look at your land. You owe it to yourself to get some numbers and at least consider PRF on your property.